Today we're going to be debunking a few common myths that keep coming up with clients or when I'm in conversations, when I'm networking on unlimited PTO. And it's interesting because this goes in ebbs and flows with the trends, but really it surrounds the core root demand for the modern day workforce to have work-life integration and that flexibility that if they need to be home, they can be home, and if they need to go on vacation, they can go on vacation. And it's not this micromanaging type of framework anymore that we have to check in with someone before we go, and that we have to like pinch pennies and PTO days all year long. And the important thing with this is most people don't even have PTO to take sick time. Most people don't have PTO to take an actual good vacation and have that reset. You know that reset I'm talking about, where you just feel good when you come back. And as a working parent with 3 little kids, most of my sick days went to sick kids. And I performed, I was a top talent, I was a high performer, and I didn't really get to take vacations. And if I took vacation, I was working over vacation. So do you already see the muddiness of regular traditional PTO policies? So there's already a lot of benefits seen in the organizations practicing unlimited PTO, but they had to do the front work. They had to do the foundational work. So let's break down some of these myths. I am streaming over multiple channels, so if you pop in a question or a comment that I can shine some light on, maybe have an answer for you or a redirection resource, go ahead and put your comment in and I will see it across platforms. So the first myth that I want to debunk around unlimited PTO is fear of abuse. That's the number one thing that I hear, is people will abuse it. And as someone in HR that hears these type of comments from leaders and people in teams, what it shows me is you have the wrong team. And that's hard to hear, especially from the HR person who placed some of these people that are making these comments, is that means your talent isn't that talented. And that is a hard concept to feel, right? Especially with a labor crisis going on. But if you don't have enough trust in your people to get the work done, if you are watching every little time on their time clock, if you're watching them come and go and watching their cars and watching camera footage, you don't have that great of staff, all right? We don't have that great of talent. So when you look at shaping an agile team, shaping adaptable teams, which is a necessity now in this ever-changing world, what you need is people that can adapt, that have that agility skill set, have top talent in there driving it forward. So what I mean is, if you are spending all your time on poor performers and then you want to say this excuse comment of people are going to abuse it, the abuse is not the problem. The problem is the people that you have in your team, that you don't trust them, that you're micromanaging them, that you're watching teams chat signals go from green to red, and you're like, oh my gosh, they're not working anymore. They're napping. Good. Go take a 20-minute nap, because then you're going to produce like an insane amount when you get up from that nap. Why are we watching time so tight? We should be watching outcomes. I'll tell you, as someone that would be presented with 40 hours, I could fill that 40 hours with a ton of stuff, and none of it would mean anything towards an outcome. It would just be activities. So when you switch to outcome driven versus time driven, this fear goes away of abuse, because if it's outcome driven, you'll know who and who is not doing the work, who is not doing those activities that need to be done to hit the outcome for the week or the day. You will know that these performers over here are doing the work and this one over here is not. Then we exit them out, or we coach them in which they either perform or don't perform, and then you know what direction to go. So fear of abuse really is a symptom, and the root cause of it is the team underneath is not reliable, is not trustworthy, and there's a lot of work to be done. Some around this change will stick with it and level up, and then some you will need to exit. The cool thing about this is when you start addressing this fear of abuse, the poison leaves your organization. And also with an unlimited PTO policy, you attract top talent. So you don't have to worry about micromanagement, because you have high performers on your team. You have those adaptable, agile people on your team that do good work when they're at work, and then they can check out. So that's number one, is fear of abuse. Number two is perceived costs. So employers think that people are just going to be off for a month straight. People think that, oh, they're going to come and go, and we're going to lose production. But on average, the companies that have initiated this internationally, on average, people are only taking 2 more days than traditional policies. 2 more days. But they said because of the flexibility and autonomy around it, they feel more rested. That they're able to completely shut off when they go on PTO and then come back online when they're ready, and they're energized, they're ready to go for the week. So there's a difference, right? If I'm trying every hour of PTO throughout the week and I'm still working stuff, it's just work. I never actually took off. But if you have unlimited PTO, I'm planning ahead, which means I'm probably working more or deep work or focus work so that I can have off. And then when I get back, because I had good backups, nothing is waiting for me to come back. I have work to do when I get back, but there's nothing that I was holding up while I was out, that I come back and I'm all in again into deep work. So it's interesting that we have to really get into this mindset shift from watching time hour for hour on PTO and shifting to outcomes. One, you're going to separate the poor performers from the high performers. You're going to also attract high performers when you have that type of model. The perceived cost is a wash. And when we talk about cost, I just want to show a statistic. So this is actually a calculator that I have on my website. It's called the De-Energized Workforce Calculator. So it really talks about the expense within your teams that we're not tracking, and we should be, because it is an insanely tangible expense that you can go for direct costs. But then the intangible we're not talking about, which is the toxic culture and the lower team morale from this dysfunction in your operation. So let's just go through these quickly. This is one that I went through with a client recently. They were having about 4,800 costs of dysfunctional meetings for 1 half-hour meeting. 1 half-hour department meeting. They wouldn't really get things done. It was a little chitter chatter, a lot of gossip about other departments, and they would have this meeting every week. So they were having about 4,800 of just waste. It was complete waste. They weren't getting objectives met in that meeting. Turnover costs was about 13,000 for the direct costs. So that would be recruitment, any ads that they put, background checks, drug screens, and then the initial onboarding costs. Turnover was a direct cost that we calculated with this client. It wasn't the intangible and ripple costs. That is team's time to mentor and train this person, loss of their productivity for training the new hire, all the replacement costs that come with that, which brings me to cost of hire. So a cost of hire is about $35,000, which this is just a customer service employee, but it's not like telemarketer. It's a little bit more technical, but cost of hire to onboard from that initial onboarding to being productive was about $35,000. That's crazy. And then we calculated disengagement costs because people were kind of checked out. They weren't really attending meetings. They were what he considered doing the bare minimum. And we calculated that about $39,000 annually. So just for this one team. And so when you add that all up, giving someone on average 2 extra days of PTO under this unlimited PTO policy doesn't seem like much cost. That's about $500 a year per employee. But you are gaining a ton of production because of the environment that you set up. So let's go into some of the questions that I had pop up. So this is over from LinkedIn. How do you hold people accountable? Great question. So accountability, let's just back up here. Let's look at some accountability factors. Accountability, someone has to know what they're accountable for. That means you need action owners. That means you need clear roles and clear outcomes you're shooting for. That means that you need that results-orientated conversations versus blame game and venting conversations. That means you need high trust and communication between teams. So that's all that workforce energy management model that I keep going through when we talk about 4-day work week, when we talk about workflow optimization and productivity optimization, is these factors we're looking at for unlimited PTO or 4-day work week, but your whole operation is enhanced when you start fixing these common root causes of why you can't offer some of these stellar benefits that top talent's looking for. So let's look at results oriented team, for example. We'll just briefly go over this. So when you look at accountability, if you look at a results oriented team, they have clear SMART goals. That means everyone's aligned, going to that outcome driven over time driven. Because if you're outcome driven, it doesn't matter then if someone comes and goes on PTO, because the outcome is either being achieved or it's not being achieved. We're on time or we're behind. So hour for hour doesn't matter anymore, which means unlimited PTO isn't just unlimited, we're off all year. It means as long as we're getting the outcomes that we need, you can go in and out as you please. Accountability, employees managing their time. If we want to micromanage people, then yes, we have to manage their time. But if we coach people, and if we have the right people in the right seats, they don't need to be micromanaged. So that means they can also manage their time. Leveraging technology, if people are coming and going because of unlimited PTO or 4-day work week, you have to leverage technology, because at any point in time, someone's going to have to keep something moving forward and someone's going to be off. So really good systems in place. If you're a small employer under about 100 employees, come reach out to me. And my talent planner is your whole operational software besides like a CRM and an ERP, like inventory system. It matches your strategy to your talent to execution, like down to meetings. And everyone has individual dashboards, so you know what the priorities are. You know who's overloaded, where things need to shift. It's a great system to align everything. It also can incorporate the DISC, behavioral science software. So when you're talking to someone, you already know their communication style. You already know what stresses them out. And that aids in de-stressing everyone, because you don't have to look in multiple places for everything. It's all aligned in one system. So leveraging technology, and then regular feedback. So when you ask that question, how do you hold people accountable? Regular feedback. And for some reason, people are afraid of feedback, and it shouldn't just be coming from leaders. If leaders are giving the only feedback, if leaders are giving the only recognition, the team synergy is already broken. To build team communication and trust, it has to be 360. Feedback that you're getting from your team members, your boss, so that's upward, people you might manage, or maybe your project lead or committee lead or committee chair, getting feedback from them. And then feedback for yourself. Are you reflecting on your own behaviors? When you have that 360 feedback on a consistent manner, not like a once a year performance review, but like consistently, you are checking yourself and growing and developing often. That accountability is there. That accountability is there from the top up. That accountability is there with your coworkers, your team. That accountability is there with your team, and that accountability is there with you. So that's a big part of the synergy part of workforce energy management, is getting comfortable with giving and receiving regular feedback so that we can hold each other accountable. And then when you talk about team accountability, we get into clear roles, responsibilities, and owners. So thank you for that question. That was a great question. Now, the one thing that we didn't talk about yet, we talked about fear of abuse, we talked about perceived costs, and then we answered that question about how do you hold people accountable. That was a great question. The one thing we haven't talked about is why you won't even start. Why haven't you allowed yourself to even explore what this could look like? Why haven't we taken a moment, even just an hour in your next management meeting, your next leadership meeting, to ask this question? If we would offer unlimited PTO in 2026, what would that look like? What would we have to do to get there? When have we stopped dreaming? In a very changing world where pretty much anything is possible, as long as you have a good foundation and framework around it, you can lead the change. You can have these things. But there's a little foundational work that we have to do on workforce energy management to get you there. So without the myths, you're the only one stopping this from happening.